The Long Road by Wolfland. Iona moved from her trainer's box and beckoned Steven to meet her at the center of the battlefield. Hands on her hips, she gave a wide smile as he approached. You know, not many people make it past me. I knock them off their feet before they can even get any momentum. But you didn't need any momentum. Those Pokemon of yours are strong. To tell the truth, I normally prefer double battles. It's what I was known for back in Johto, but they wouldn't let me bend the rules. The current champ is a real stickler. So if you ever want to battle again with a different format, just stop on by. She gave a wink before reaching into the pocket of her jumpsuit and pulling something out. Since you gave me such a good match, and you won fair and square, take this. I know how tough this gauntlet can be, and something tells me you regret not making that first switch. I like your style, so here's to a second chance. With an easy toss, she flipped the revive toward Steven, who caught it with only a slight bobble. He gaped at the rare item, a precious commodity given the strict healing item policy put in place to prevent challengers from simply sacrificing Pokemon and bringing them back repeatedly in an effort to outlast the Elite's teams. He'd originally planned to save as many of his revival items for the later battles as possible, and losing 2 Pokemon to fainting in the first round wasn't part of that idea. Iona just handed him a new lease on his League Challenge life. Before he could stammer his thanks, Iona gave a knowing nod. Now, good luck in the next chamber. Glacia's been waiting for a good battle, since I usually hog them all. Steven accepted the hand Iona extended to him, and managed to meet her warm smile with one of his own. The tense excitement was already building back up to bury his short-lived relief. But if Iona had this much faith in him, maybe he could conquer his nerves and pull off another victory. But a new opponent brought new challenges. Glacia, the second elite. Master of the Ice type, which meant fearsome attacking power and a stalwart defense, awaited his arrival. This would be a battle of stamina, and he needed to prepare accordingly. Pausing just beyond Iona's chamber, Steven administered his gifted revive and one of his own, which Claydol and Credilli gratefully accepted. Quieting Credilli's whine of apology with a reassuring pat and soft words that she had done her best, he then turned his attention to the rest of his team. Agron and Skarmory were both fresh, as was Armaldo, although Steven could only wonder how shaken it was after seeing Credilli take that vicious attack. Metagross, though, had taken considerable damage in the finale against Iona's electric duo. Eyeing the limited quantity of League-approved healing items, he jostled his pack and then remembered. The Berry Master's gifts! The bundle of citrus berries was doled out to his Pokemon. Metagross snacked on a few to regain its strength, but Agron wisely tucked its berry away to save for the upcoming match. With one last double check, Steven recalled them all and set his sights on the double doors at the far end of the hallway. He was barely halfway there when he felt the temperature drop. The nervousness welled up in his gut once again, but the encouragement from Iona stuck with him, even as the second chamber's doors thudded shut behind him. Welcome. Steven nearly shivered, and he suspected it wasn't from the cold. The voice held an edge to it that took the normally cordial greeting and transformed it into a threat. A figure stepped through the frosty mist that hung low over the chamber's floor, her hands clasped tightly over the pale violet fabric of her dress. My name is Glacia, and this is as far as you will go. In one swift motion, a hand slipped into the pocket of her dress and reappeared brandishing a Pokeball. Her Glalie materialized on the battlefield with a shuddering screech. Taken aback by the complete turnabout from Iona's cheerful disposition, Steven froze, no doubt with an involuntary look of confusion on his face. Only when Glacia's eyes narrowed dangerously did he snap into action, bringing out his first Pokemon. and their battle began without another word. But when Metagross tore through the Ice-type's defenses like it was nothing more than paper, he exhaled the tense breath he'd been holding, letting it billow out in a big, foggy cloud. Glacia's chilly demeanor had been intimidating to say the least, and Metagross's quick victory washed away his nervousness like the hot springs at Lava Ridge. After all, a battle of stamina favored his preferred Pokemon type too. Silently, Glalie was returned, and a Frostlass appeared on the battlefield in its stead, her cool gaze easily ignoring the scattered ice chips from her fallen teammate. This time, however, the type advantage swung in Glacia's favor, and a particularly vicious Shadow Ball left Metagross stunned before it could land a blow of its own. But Steven had learned his lesson, and Frostlass's second Shadow Ball smashed into the arena floor as Metagross vanished in the light of its recall beam. Agron took its place with a battle cry, eager for its first action of the day. It eyed the dual-type Pokemon with a grunt, sizing up the competition. While not as speedy as the previous Elite's Pokemon, Frostlass enjoyed an evasive advantage over Agron's lumbering speed. But Agron was dogged in his pursuit, and when he managed to get his claws on the wispy ice type, it proved to be more than enough to topple Glacia's second Pokemon. The Frostlass's pain shriek was cut short by the bellow of Glacia's next selection, but the way Agron simply grinned told Steven his partner already knew the outcome of this round. Shaking off the frost from Frostlass's futile attacks, electricity crackled between Agron's horns before arching toward a startled-looking Walrein. But just like the battle with Juan, Walrein would not be toppled with one move, and it struck back with all of the water-type attacks it knew. Back and forth the two giants struggled, and it was only Agron's Citrus Berry that gave it the strength to withstand Walrein's fierce torrent. And in the end, Glacia's Walrein fell under Agron's fearsome attack. Panting, Agron stood tall, but Steven was having none of its bravado and reached for its ball, readying Metagross in return. Except that as a second Frostlass made its appearance on the battlefield, Steven's hand twitched to another ball on his belt. Skarmory materialized with a screech and immediately took to the skies, earning a quirked brow from Glacia. However, Steven remained stoic. He knew the flying type was a gamble, but if there was any Pokemon on his team stubborn and proud enough to avoid a knockout, it was Skarmory. Hesitating only a moment to watch her opponent circle overhead, Frostlass let loose a chilling scream before drifting into the haze of the icy battlefield. Instantly, the wind began to whip into a frenzy, snow and ice whirling in a fierce storm that forced Skarmory to duck low to the ground, lest the ice form on its wings and send it plummeting from the sky. As it swooped low, Frostlass seized her chance, darting out of the mist, arms raised to envelop Skarmory in the sheer cold of her grasp. But Skarmory's senses were sharp, and at the last minute, it nimbly pivoted, striking the floor of the arena with its wings, and sending a shower of sparks raining down on the shrieking Frostlass. As Glacia's Pokemon recoiled in fear from the fiery show, Skarmory wheeled about, shooting skyward for only a moment as its steel wing charged, before slamming Frostlass hard to the ground with the edges of its bladed wings. Writhing from the critical strike, Frostlass tried to rise, only to have a razor-sharp talon clamp down on her throat. Wings unfurled in a triumphant pose, Skarmory screeched as its victim vanished in a beam of red light. Its celebration was cut short, however, by the chattering roar of a furious Glalie, and Skarmory swiveled to face the new threat. Except it never got the chance to face it, as Agron would simply not be outdone. He fairly burst forth from his ball before Steven could rightfully summon him, sending his trainer scrambling to recall Skarmory from the battlefield. Before Steven had a chance to admonish his reckless partner, Agron had made quick work of the opposing Pokemon. The icicles that coated its horns from the Glalia's opening blizzard were shattered, along with a good portion of its opponent's hide, scattering in a dazzling shower of crystal. The scoreboard pinged, and Steven watched as Glacia's icons all dimmed to gray, while all 6 of his own still glowed brightly. The battle had gone better than he could have ever hoped, and the swell of pride in himself and his Pokémon again brought a rush of warmth to his face. It took considerable effort to keep from grinning unabashedly. As her last Pokémon toppled to the frozen arena floor, Glacia grimaced, but managed to hold her composure despite the complete sweep of her team. Every Pokémon she had called forth was mowed down without so much as scoring a knockout of their own. It stung the hit to her pride, but being an elite did not make one invincible. Ignoring Agron where it stood, breathing hard but still very much able to fight, she stepped forward to meet Steven at the center of the battlefield, icy stare never wavering. "Impressive, challenger." The edge in her voice cut through Steven's elation, and he sobered quickly. Seeing his startled reaction, Glacia gave a thin smile and folded her arms across her chest. "I can't recall the last time I've been handed such a single-sided defeat. My Pokémon and I have trained hard to withstand the heat of our enemies, but you battle with Pokémon who also relish the cold." Her gaze slid to the side, and a lone finger reached up to rest at her temple. "You've given us a lot to think about. But," she continued, "a win is a win, and seeing as I no longer have a need for it, I trust you'll make good use of this with your given strategy." She held out a full restore and dropped it into Steven's palm as if it had burned her. "Congratulations on your victory, but in the next chamber, I doubt you'll enjoy the same amount of success. All the same, I wish you luck. Don't make me the last elite to fall at your hands."